What's up, folks? We're going to let this thing go ahead and spool up. It looks good on my end. Let me know if you can hear me. And of course, if you have any questions before we get started, I started a few minutes early to allow the numbers to kind of spool up and stuff. And if you have any questions in the meantime, then we'll see if we can get them knocked out beforehand. So we'll officially begin in 4 minutes. I think I'm going to rearrange my screen here because I got some exhibits today. Let's see. Uh, it seems like we got some fluctuations in the stream here. I don't know. Oh, no, we're good. All right, cool. Again, we'll start in about 3 minutes, but if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We're going to be covering some more lighthearted topics today, but also somewhat relevant. So, also, if you're watching this and you haven't yet subscribed to this B channel, then go ahead and do that if you feel so inclined. My plan is to grow this one so I can continuously stream on it, but I don't have access to all the tools because the subscriber count hasn't gotten to where it needs to be, basically, on the B channel. So to access that, I have to make it to 1,000 subscribers. We're currently sitting at 800 something. So maybe we'll be able to push that over today. We'll see. We did have a question last night on 8.6 Blackout that I think I'll cover real quick for anybody who missed it. And that is that the question about 8.6 Blackout is, do I think it has a lot of potential? And my answer was, I don't know, because I can't currently tell you anything about it from the perspective of an official test. And on top of that, all the stuff that I saw when I saw it, which was at SHOT Show, was not what I expected to see, which they were touting that this was going to be something that was going to be like the most cutting edge thing ever. It was going to make subsonic ammunition so much more viable, but then they proceeded to only show us supersonic recoveries. So I'm just like, well, why did we do it that way? Why didn't you guys bring the stuff that you're actually saying that it'll do? So I don't know. We'll see. I think it makes a lot of sense from a physics perspective. It's just, it needs to be demonstrated because, as we've seen in many things, what is theoretically possible and what empirically ends up happening in the field can be two very different things. So anyway, we're right at 4 o'clock, and I can see the subscriber count starting to bump here. So, or subscriber viewer count starting to bump here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing that I wanted to look at today was actually a video that I saw on Instagram today of our former president. And I watched this and I literally laughed out loud. So let me go ahead and cue this thing up. Where do I have this thing? I think I have it here. Yep. So this is going to be from CNN, so I'm sorry about that. But let's see here. Where do I... Of course, they have to give it a clickbaity title.
In contrast, Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, too. Anyway, 75.
Oh, crap, man. Look, what I would say about this, first and foremost, why I thought it was funny, is the dude just literally owns it. Okay, like he knows that he made a mistake, and he just owns it that he did. But what I would like to say about this is, while many would agree or perhaps disagree with the statements that he made, I think that this is a prime example of why we need some kind of age limit on this office. Now, granted, President Bush was in far before the age of 75, but I would say that 70. Can we agree that geriatrics should not be elected to the most powerful position in the world? I think that if we're intellectually honest about it, especially when you're talking about somebody who is much older than that, if you think, for instance, let's say that you take office at the age of 74. Well, if you do one term, you'll be 78 by the time you are out of office. If you do two terms, by my public education math, that puts you at 82. And I don't know. I think that the current rates are that you have about 80 years. You can extend that with some really good medical care, but I can't tell you what the percentages are, but there are a lot of 75 and 80-year-old dudes that don't have all their marbles in a line. Okay? And to be putting these kind of people in positions of power is just, I don't care if they've been there for a long time, if they've been there and done that, they've got a lot of experience. When their brain is literally rotting out of their head, perhaps they should not be in positions of power. What do you guys think about that? I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments. Because I just feel like we're going to get another round of this, because currently what we have is we have a president who is clearly in these stages of dementia, and that's not a dig on the man. I feel like the current situation that he's in is literally elder abuse, whether you like the guy or not. I think that there are lots of situations to point to that. But the presumptive challenger for the election in 2 years from now is likely to be a geriatric. Who will be the same age then as this dude was when he first took office. How is that okay? Is my question to y'all. I don't think that it's okay, and it's not something that we should stand for, and I believe that a really good number would be 70 years of age. If you are 70 years of age, you're no longer eligible. I think you already have to be, 45 to be able to run? So that means, or is it 35? Let's look that up really quick. Hang on. Well, minimum age. Let's see if you guys get it right in the chat. 35 years old is the minimum age. Yeah, so not 45. I said that wrong. So that was the first thing that I had to cover today. And we're only going to stream for an hour today. Basically, what I'm looking to do is do a test stream today to see if the same thing happens when the stream gets converted to a VOD. Basically, last night my stream was taken down by YouTube after it finished because it was spam somehow. It was clearly not spam. So the second topic that I wanted to talk about today was actually something that happened locally. So the other day, I'm coming. The range is located right out this way, okay, and to get there, you have to go over this really big hill that overlooks my property. And so I'm coming back from the range, and I see this neon green car pull into my driveway. And I'm like, well, who are you? Am I getting an unexpected visitor here that I need to maybe be worried about? So I pull out onto the road and go to my place. And on the way there are power lines down over the road. I have to go into the left lane to be able to get around the power lines that are down. And I hear beeping and horns and all that sort of stuff. People are starting to congregate around, things like that. And I pull into my driveway and look to my right like this, and there's a mashed up white vehicle laying basically on the bank that's just shredded, right? And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? So, Dude Bro was texting and driving, basically, went left of center while he was not paying attention, and the woman driving the neon green car that I mentioned earlier swerved into my driveway to miss this douchebag, okay? And when he reacted, he swerved and hit the guardrail. And I have an image to show you guys. Let's see, screen display capture. Here we go. You guys gonna get a mess here for a second. Oop, that's the wrong one. All right, so this is a look in my front yard, and this image was taken today. So let me just move ourselves around here. Okay, you'll notice. Oop. Let's see here. Good enough. You'll notice. Is that good enough? Yeah, that's good. You'll notice that here is where the guardrail starts. They're digging it out to put new guardrail in it. Dude Bro smashes this guardrail, jumps his vehicle, and hits this telephone pole 5 feet up. And if he hadn't hit that telephone pole, he would have ended up in this ravine over here that he would not have gotten out of that vehicle. He walked out, and he was doing the whole like, oh, I guess I must have fallen asleep at the wheel. You know, I've been working hella hours. You know, and I'm thinking to myself like, no, bro, no, that's not what happened. No, not at 1:30 in the afternoon. Thanks. So you can see how fast he must have been going to clear this. Basically, I haven't measured this, but I want to guess this somewhere around 40, somewhere between 30 and 40 yards. And again, 5 feet up. So right around in this area is where he cut that off. So it gets better. So not only does this power line here power this line of cables that then run out into this this section of housing out here, but it also runs down and powers this pump station that runs the water supply for the community. So this dude basically ruined everybody's afternoon. On top of that, they decided that the time that was most opportune to repair this was at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I was woken up by my driveway alarm. I have a laser that runs across my my driveway, and periodically at odd hours of the night, deer will activate this thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why? I look out my window, and there are like the whole yard is lit up, and there's like 2 or 3 trucks, a couple heavy pieces of machinery like an excavator and things like that, a boom truck and all that sort of stuff. And for some reason, they think that 3 o'clock in the morning, even though they had all afternoon to do it, that 3 o'clock in the morning was the correct time to repair this thing. So, needless to say, I was not happy about this. So, the lesson here is kids, do not text and drive. Now, here's the thing. I don't know. I don't think the chat is working. So I need to, I'm not seeing. I think I clicked the wrong button. Let me see if I can recover what's going on over here. Here. Yeah, see that my chat window wasn't working. I've got a whole list of chats to look at here. So sorry about that, guys. For some reason, when I popped it out in the window, it did not populate. So let me see. We're going to take it from the top. Audio is good. Thanks, guys. So, first of all, going back to the Bush situation, I'm not sure about the I was, and I will admit that my brain was too squishy at the time that Bush and the Bush and Putin thing were going on. So I can't really. Somebody said that I thought Bush and Putin were BFFs. I don't really remember or recollect this very well. So you got to remember, in 2001, I was a freshman in high school, and I was much more preoccupied with tail at that time than I was with world events. Uh, also, somebody remarked that my spell checker sucks. Here's the thing: I just got a brand spanking new keyboard. I've been using an old, just junky keyboard for the longest time, and I hit the wrong buttons because they're spatially different than they used to be, and I keep hitting the caps lock when I go for the A, and I think it's because I've got extra buttons on the side of the keyboard, and I home my hand to the keyboard, so every once in a while I get off. So sorry if I spell something wrong for a while, and that's just the way it's going to go. Um, some people talking about cooked elections and so somebody says my in-laws, parentheses, both have dementia. There is no question that our president is suffering from the same. And you know what? Here's the thing. I'm torn because I don't like the dude. Period. Before anything, 20 years ago, I didn't like the dude's politics, and excuse me, the dude's politics 20 years ago, before he had dementia, I didn't really care for. Looking at it from a today's perspective, I don't like the guy, but I also don't like to see someone taken advantage of, and he's clearly being taken advantage of by the powers that be. Right? He's been clearly put into position that he's not qualified for. Maybe at one point in time, you could make an argument that he would have been qualified for this position. He's clearly just there to eat pudding and stand in front of a teleprompter. He's literally a bag of meat at this point in time. And it's I said it before, it's elder abuse, and it's absolutely unacceptable. Let's see. Somebody said, yep, I would even go as far as 65. That's max to be an airline pilot. Okay, yep, that's totally acceptable. I could see that. So somebody says, Ron DeSantis, you're our only hope. Here's the thing. If Orange Man runs, ain't nobody going to run against him. I'm going to tell you that right now. And that's unfortunate. But the reality situation is if somebody did run against him in a primary, it probably wouldn't go very well for that person, just because there's so many people that that really like the guy. Now here's the thing, and I would say fanatically like the guy. here's the thing. I have been very open and critical about that particular individual. I think that he is directly responsible for the playbook that is being used against the Second Amendment currently, which you can trace its roots back to the National Rifle Association. So that is one of the things that I will say about current events is that NRA annual meeting is coming up, I think next week or something like that. So shows you how much I know. I have no intentions of attending that event and protest for how they handled that situation. Everybody knows that basically that was not his issue. Second Amendment is not that particular individual's issue. And he basically ceded authority on that issue to the organization as previously mentioned. And they said, yeah, bro, you can get away with this. It'll be okay. And they're responsible for exactly what's being used against you right now, the expansion of ATF authority. So whether you like that or not, sorry, but I'm just trying to be truthful here. Uh, let's see. Yeah, people still talking about DeSantis. Yeah, what can I say? Okay, so now I will go ahead and open this up for any buddy who wants to pick a new topic. Those were the two things that I had listed for today. And basically, my idea for live streams going forward is to show up with about 20 minutes worth of content and then let it just be taken away by the audience, because I think that that's how some of the best live streams that I participated in the past have come to fruition. So now, in the meantime, while we see if somebody can spool up spool up a new topic, uh, things that I'm working on currently. I've got a couple projects that are in the works. One of which is a brand spanking new firearm that will come out in roughly 30 days. So that is going to be really exciting. It'll be a whole line of firearms that are coming out. I only have one of the types. So, I mean, I don't have that much bandwidth. What can I say? I also have another new suppressor. Actually, a couple new suppressors that are kind of all one thing that I'm currently working on. I'm really excited about this one because it's, let me put it this way. I put it on my 300 blackout gun, and I can hear the bolt close when I shoot it. So, and that's on a gas gun. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be really, really awesome. I'm not obviously going to reveal those at this time, but those are the two projects that I'm currently working on. And then I have some retrofits, some new parts that are in for a few weapons that we've covered previously. And I would say that those guns were already in pretty good shape, but we've got some serious upgrades in the space. So that's going to be really, really good, because one of my favorite guns uh, that I don't get to shoot very often because the ammunition is expensive just got a complete redo, and I'm literally putting the parts on it after I finish this live stream. Now I can't really, and the reason that's happening today is it's raining on and off today, and I um, really can't do a whole lot today. The amount of money that I have burned over the years on cameras that have died in the rain, if I had all of that, I could buy a brand new 2022 setup. So I've just, if it's super rainy, and the other thing that I struggled with at the beginning was you'd buy a nice camera, and then if you cheap out on the tripod, you're asking for it. So I can't tell you how many lenses. In fact, I have a right here. So this is one of the first lenses that I killed, and um, I've got it to go back together so it doesn't look all that bad, but it's actually bent. And what happened was the wind blew, and I had the camera on a cheap tripod, and it just fell over and landed right on the lens, completely ruined it. So it doesn't spool anymore. It doesn't do any of that sort of stuff because it's basically it only goes to about that far because the housing itself is torqued inside, or excuse me, the lens itself is torqued inside the housing. So lessons be learned. If you're gonna buy nice cameras, you have to buy a really nice tripod as well. So somebody says that your driveway alarm should be able to be programmed to detect large objects or many objects in a quick succession. Yes, it does. The only problem with that is the deer around here. I'm not sure where you live, sir, but the deer around here are seriously corn-fed and huge. They're big swamp bucks. So I've shot several deer in my life that weighed well into the 250-pound range. Um, some well into the 300-pound range if they're big dominant bucks. So a deer that size is going to be about the same height as the sedan. So if you're playing with that right at that point, then you're going to miss half the cars that come through. Yeah, I want to know when the UPS truck drives up, but I'd also like to know when a small convertible shows up as well too. So I'm kind of screwed. Is what it comes down to. I suppose I could unplug it, but then if a car rolls in the middle of the night, then I won't know that either. So the good news is I have multiple cameras on the outside of the house, so I don't have to actually get out of bed to figure out what's going on. I can just roll over and grab my phone and check the camera, and I can see what's going on outside, basically, from just about every angle. Somebody asks, any plans to get the Energetic Arms ARX or the Shield Arms Z9 mags on the channel? I'm not familiar with the Z9 mags from Shield Arms. I'm not familiar with that one, but I have contact with the people at Energetic Arms. They are one of my favorite manufacturers. Currently, ARX is unobtainium, so they don't actually. I have not talked to them in a month or two, but basically I'm waiting for supply to get back up so that we can get one of those samples in. If they're selling everything that they make, then it's hard for them to part with a sample unless it's a busted sample. And in today's day and age, it's hard for a manufacturer to send someone like me a busted or a blemished sample because I'm going to take really nice pictures of it and those blemishes are going to show up on camera. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you're selling absolutely everything that you make, then you don't have samples to send out to people. So I'm very happy that Energetic is doing well. They're one of my favorite cans on the market, the Vox X, that is. So I can only imagine that the ARX is going to be pretty fantastic as well. But again, I haven't tested it, so I can't definitively say whether that is going to be a thing or not. Somebody gives me some bro love here and then says, what would be your go-to suppressor or go-to suppressed 300 black weapon and accessories for all-around use? Okay, so here's the thing. I would say that in this category, you would want an AR-15 of some kind. It doesn't really matter what the make and model is, as long as it's made with quality components. But I would say that something around the 10-inch or 12-inch range. They used to say that 300 blackout is optimized for 9-inch barrels and stuff like that. It's all bullcrap. Maybe at the very beginning, that's what they were shooting for, but Mr. Guns of Gear put out a fantastic video on this some years ago. If you haven't watched that, go watch that. It really breaks it down. Now, there have been some more developments since then, so there probably needs to be a part 2 made for that video. But I was going to make that video, but then he beat me to the punch. I'm like, well, why on earth would I make this video when I can just tell people to go watch Mike's video? So, but what you get out of a 10 to 12 inch barrel is the full capacity of the cartridge. You don't really need a 16-inch barrel to get full velocities or full velocity potential out of the weapon. So you get to shrink it, and for 12 inches, you take that extra 4 inches, and that is almost the entire length of your can. So I would say that the all-around do-everything rifle should be somewhere around the 10 to 12-inch mark. I would prefer it with an adjustable pistol-length gas system. I know people are going to freak out about that. I'm willing to accept an adjustable carbine-length gas system. And I know that people are going to freak out about that too. But at the 14-inch mark, to be able to get the full potential out of everything, as far as being able to select any ammunition off the shelf and be able to tune that gun, you're going to need a higher input dwell time. So there's a lot of, well, it would be higher pressure and a higher dwell time. So the closer you put the tap, the higher the pressure will be, and then also the longer that system will be under pressure. And I am working on the, by popular demand, 1-hour lecture on cans. I'm currently filming on that. I've been filming on it for a couple weeks now because there's a lot of topics to cover. So we will be doing a publishing of the full 1-hour discussion on cans that everybody has asked me to do. I'm looking forward to publishing that one, but it's taken a long time to put together. So, and now as far as the other accessories, the can is going to be dependent on what you're looking for. If you're looking for max suppression, then it's going to be a gassier in-your-face can. So you may want to look at accessories that mitigate the gas in the face situation. There are plenty of them out there, perhaps in an adjustable bolt carrier group or something like that. But that also ends up giving you another point of failure to consider. So there's another complication added to the system if you do that. So what I would tell people to do is to look at a more mid-gassy can that's going to be a little bit louder. It's not going to soak up quite as much of the muzzle report, but it won't put as much in your face. I don't really think that to go full heavy-ass OSS can is the way to go, but there are cans that are right in the middle that do a pretty decent job of suppressing the sound, but then also don't blow a whole bunch back in your face. So, and you can look at our compendium of videos on the topic to figure out which ones might be good. Now from there, I think that you can do a lot of good out to the viable range of a lot of 300 blackout cartridges with a red dot. So I'm saying that most of the time I'm shooting 300 blackout inside of 200 yards, even with full powered ammunition. So you can do a lot of work with the red dot. So I would say anything that's got a small enough dot to be able to work with it, somewhere around a 2 MOA dot would be good. You can't get away with 4, but then you're going to be covering up a lot. Some kind of iron sights, preferably metal, because, and that's important because most people think that the iron sights, they could be plastic to save weight and all that sort of stuff. The problem with that is the next thing I'm going to say. When you take that thing out into the dark, you're going to run it into just about everything that is in your environment. And plastic sights, when run into things, break. I've broken lots of plastic sights because I just wasn't paying attention and hit it off of something. Even if you're wearing night vision, even if you're wearing duals, you're missing right here. okay, and back. So it's really not outside the realm of possibility to have your rifle like this and smack it off of something really easy. I hit my truck doors all the time. In fact, I'll tell you a really quick story about that. The other day, it was this winter. I'm getting ready to get into my vehicle. I kind of wanted to move to the next site, so I took my nods and I just flipped them up, right? And I went to get in my truck, so I put my foot on the running board and hopped up in the truck, and I got rejected by my nods. So the Rhino mount literally hit the housing of the truck, and I got rejected in the face and then landed on my back in a few inches of snow. And I'm telling you, I just laid there for a minute. And I contemplated my life, and I'm like, I am so glad that it is pitch black outside and nobody saw that. No moon, no nothing. So, but I'm telling it to you because it was a good story. You run into so much more crap, even with night vision on, that, or particularly with night vision on, because you're focused on a much narrow range of view. So I would say that for your night stuff, you need some kind of aiming laser. Now, I've used the Zentico stuff. I'm not sure if you can get Zentico stuff anymore. And I've put it up against a full-powered PEC, and it wipes the floor with a full-powered PEC, like a Leo PEC. So there are lots of good lasers out there, but that laser should have, you should spend the extra money and have an integrated IR illuminator in there. Preferably with the ability to adjust both of them, because full power is not always the thing that you want, particularly if you're shooting up close on steel targets, because that laser can hit the target and come right back and hit you in the face, and it's very disorienting. And to tell you the truth, if I do a whole lot of that and my laser's on full power, it gives me a freaking headache, man, because you're just looking at, it's like looking at a doctor's scope right in your eye continuously. You end up with the purple dots and all that sort of stuff. So some kind of aiming laser. And the whole, like, use the passive aiming thing. The thing about passive aiming that a lot of people don't realize, who haven't looked through nods and tried to passively aim, is a lot of times when you shoulder your weapon, you give yourself the shoulder weld, and then you drop your head to go down to your sights. And you look through your sights, usually through the top third or top 2/3 of your eye socket. Your head is actually pointed down. Well, when you do that, your nod is pointed on the front of your face here, and when you go like this, well, your nod is now looking at the ground over there, and you basically can't see anything. So you have to completely reorient yourself and relearn how to hold your gun and everything if you're going to do any passive aiming. And then you have to do the adjustments and all that sort of stuff. It's really not easy to do. So, which brings me to the next point, which was, if you're doing some kind of laser on the front, it should be a dual spectrum laser, because it's really hard to zero your infrared laser in the dark, because you have to try to do the passive aiming thing with a red dot or something like that. And what it usually devolves into, having helped people zero multiple IR lasers that didn't have dual channel, didn't have a visible that we could use during the twilight hours, is it devolves into guess and check. So squeeze the round off. Yeah, I kind of hit to the left, sort of, and crank the thing. Shoot. Yeah, missed again. Crank the thing some more. And basically, what you end up doing is wasting a whole bunch of ammunition. Whereas if you just had a dual spectrum laser, you go out there a half hour before dark, and you turn your red dot on, and you crank the laser until crank the red laser or the green laser or whatever your other spectrum of light is, until it co-witnesses with your red dot, and you're done. So there's a lot that can go into that, and I understand this stuff is not very obtainable when it comes to your pocketbook. But I'm telling you that this is one of those areas that you need to spend the money for all the features. Even if you don't think, oh, I'll just do it this way. What it turns out to be is that after you after you get out there and start doing it, that wow, it would be really nice if it had that extra feature that costs an extra $200. So let's see. Anything else to cover on the gun that would do everything? Yeah, that's about it. AR-15 adjustable gas block with a either pistol or carbine length gas system with a 10 to 12 inch barrel, some kind of a mid-grade gassy can that kind of is middle of the road, some kind of IR illumination device, iron sights that are made out of metal, and a red dot. I would say that gun also needs to have of some kind of control for the charging handle that allows you to operate it from the offside. So the standard charging handle, if that's one of the things that you eliminate, put a Radiant Raptor or something in it that allows you to operate it from the offhand side, because you end up many times in the dark with your hands full, and you may not want it. Maybe it's just a pain in the ass if you have to put the thing down, and that's all I can say. There's unless you've done it, it's hard to articulate why that is until you're in the situation where you're like, wow, I really wish I could operate it from this side. Typically, I run it over my left eye. If I'm running a mono, I'll run it over my left eye and leave this one ambient. So the other thing that I did not mention for that do everything gun is a easily removable weapon light. Because if you're running your night vision, you do not want a white light on the gun, because it's very easy to ND that thing. Personally speaking, I don't run any switches or anything like that. I feel that switches are really janky. The wires usually are and connections are really easy to break. I want big frickin' buttons on the side of that control unit. I want to go directly to the control unit and not have to worry about which switch I'm pushing. So I want a physical lever that I push, not some kind of just hover switch that can potentially activate inadvertently. Yeah, that's all I would say for the do everything gun. So I probably forgot something, but you know. Oh, ammunition. I find that a mid-level ammunition like 150 grain, right on the money. That's my go-to 200 grain 200 yard cartridge. You can get away with the 125s, so more reminiscent of a 7.62 by 39. But the 150 is going to be a really slow 308, basically. And you can find hollow points and things like that in that pretty easily. Fantastic ammunition. I use the Fiocchi stuff. They're a channel sponsor. I greatly appreciate them for supplying. But their 150 grain is just excellent. Let's see. It says, my home state of Illinois has banned ghost guns. Apparently, gang members figure out how to work a drill and Dremel. No, look, man, that's not what that is. We know that that's not what that is. And I think that anybody's got two brain cells that fires in the same direction knows what that is. That's just a low-hanging fruit, which is exactly what the previous administration did. They wanted a win, so they went after something that they could demonize. Love your content. Keep pissing excellence. Thank you. I try to wake up and piss excellence every day. Usually it's just a whole bunch of spent caffeine. But every once in a while I have an excellent day. Somebody says, I love a suppressed 300 blackout. It is my favorite cartridge. Even the supersonic stuff sounds pretty good. The only thing that gets better than 300 blackout when we're talking about the supersonic stuff. Obviously, subsonic stuff is going to be subsonic and it's going to be much quieter. The only thing that really gets better than the supersonic 300 blackout are the supersonic 6.5 rounds. So anything that's chambered in 6.5. And the reason why is the size and diameter, Kurt, losing your mind. The diameter of the bullet matters because it's what's being presented to the wind. So they make a lot less hiss and they make a lot less sonic boom noise as they go down range when they're presenting a smaller profile. So a 338 Lapua, for instance, fully suppressed, sounds terrible compared to a 6.5 Creedmoor, for instance. And that's not just because, even if you did just 308, so same case, basically, parent case, you would end up with a much louder gun in a 308 than if you had a 6.5 Creedmoor, even though the 6.5 Creedmoor is going faster. Somebody asks, how are the old characters doing from the old days of VSO? As far as I know, everybody's doing well. I know that people ask for Wombat a whole lot. Wombat has a big boy job, and unfortunately, he can't come out very often. Currently, he's doing travel gig for his job, so unfortunately, he actually calls me on a semi-regular basis when he's driving home his 3 hours from his gig that he's at. And it sucks because I really like having those guys out. It makes my job a lot easier when I have people around, and it makes it much more enjoyable for me because the majority of the time I'm out there doing stuff by myself, and that can get really boring. Like I actually had somebody contact me the other day, someone from grade school whose husband was watching something and was like, "Hey, dude, how you doing? Are you doing this?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Can we have lunch with you one day?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, fine, whatever." You know, because they were from, obviously hometown area, and they've moved out of state, but they come in for holidays and stuff like that. So that's on the list of things to do. It's fun for me to have people out to do stuff because a lot of times I have to make it all up in my brain, and then I have to go out and execute it by myself. And nothing messes with your sanity a whole lot more than talking to a camera as though it was a human being. So I'm just throwing that out there. Now, as far as other guys are concerned, Doc, I haven't heard much out of Doc lately. He again got it a promotion, so he's working hella hours. Straight Cut basically moved away for another travel job. Let me think. Bacon, unfortunately, he got a big boy job in a conflicting area, so we probably won't see much out of him until he gets sick of that job. Sorry, that was a dig on my brother. Let's see, who else? Yeah, man. As far as I know, everybody's good. But yeah, sometimes I wish they'd come around more. Trust me. I know that you guys have asked for them, but I'm here all day, every day. They just don't call me. And I know that life moves on and things like that. People get other interests. I got it. I understand. This is my job. So I understand what it is to eat, breathe, sleep firearms. And I can totally see why people move in and out of the interests over time. Somebody asks, are you for a 50-200 zero or a 300-yard zero? It depends on the cartridge, in my opinion. However, if you're talking about 5.56, I am totally a 50-200 zero person. I think their 300-yard zero doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I understand that was standard operating procedure for I believe the Marine Corps uses that. But in the modern day, I think the 50-200-yard zero makes much more sense than the 300-yard zero. Simply because when you look at where that is, really, the 50-200 zero isn't really a 200 zero. it's more like a 235-0 if you're doing it right. And because of that, you get accuracy with most reticles out to 400 yards without a whole lot of work. So that's what I would say about that. If you're talking about 5.56. Now, if you're talking about other calibers, those are going to be very specific um, zeros. I still use the 50-yard zero when I'm talking 300 blackout. I still use that one, but I changed the zero for like bolt guns and things like that. 6.5 Creedmoor, I definitely do not zero at 50 yards. I might start at 50, but 6.5 I use more like I use a 100-yard zero, just because I feel like it gives you it's a much faster projectile. My 17 WSM I use a 100-yard zero, and that is all dependent on velocity. So that's the amount of distance it's going to cover inside its ballistic arc. And I use a 100-yard zero for the 17 WSM because they're spanking out there at like 3,300 feet per second. Somebody asks, what's the word, Bird? Do you still utilize the gut stabbing cobra buckles for your EDC? If not, where are you using now as a EDC gun belt? I do not. I actually made a video about how much I hate cobra buckles. So go check that out. But generally speaking, I have moved towards my go-to belt is the Core Essentials. Am I wearing a Core hat? No, I'm not wearing a Core hat. I'll be right back. I'll go get one of those belts. It just so happens that I had one like right there on the stair. So these belts, they have a variety of them. I have a couple that look more dress ready, and then this one is more tactical, if you will. It's got a nylon front, and it has this ratchet system on there. I've got a full video out on this thing, but I've had this belt for I think 2 years now, and it's in fantastic shape. But quarter-inch adjustments. The other thing that this thing has that is really excellent is it's resin poured. So not there at the part where the band actually ratchets in, but right here at the part where you would hang stuff off of it, it's resin poured. So even though it's a really thin belt, it's a rigid belt. So fantastic belt, highly, highly suggested. So yes, I'm not much for cobra buckles, and I also am not much for the battle belt setup stuff anymore. I just feel like I understand why people use it, but and everybody should have stuff, and they should train with it periodically. But I think in most situations that you would use a battle belt, you should probably have a plate carrier on. And the plate carrier eliminates most of the need for most of the stuff, if it's laid out properly, that you would put on a battle belt. And that's my 2 cents. There's obviously things that would go on the battle belt that wouldn't go on your plate carrier. But I understand the utility of the cobra belt and why it's used and all that sort of stuff. It's an excellent buckle, but I just think that there are better options for an EDC belt, and you don't need a cobra buckle. You're not going to be climbing a mountain with that belt. Also, the thing about cobra buckles is everybody's figured out what those are. So they look, they're an indicator. They look a particular way, and they indicate that you're somebody who perhaps might be carrying a weapon to somebody who's perceptive. So that's another really good reason not to use a cobra buckle, because you're either a mountain climber or you're a tactical dude. This is basically the only 2 people who use cobra buckles. Some water out of my my Royal Berkey. I wanted to buy a water purification system some years ago but they were out of stock constantly. And it really hit home for me during the start of the pandemic that I needed to get that in order, because if I mean we would go to the grocery store and you couldn't buy bottles of water. And while I have good water, it would be nice to have something that if shit broke down, I could get fresh water. So you can literally take swamp water with mud in it and put it in your Berkey water filter and get clean drinkable water. So currently I'm running two um, of the charcoal filters. I have not purchased the second two because last time I went to buy them, they were out of stock. So I'm still waiting to get my second two, but it just doubles the filtration rate. It's a gravity feed, and it does an excellent job. If you could fight one of the two, would it be a grizzly bear or an alligator? The question on top of that would be, are we on land? Because if we're on land, I'm going to assume we're on land. I would pick the alligator 10 out of 10 times. Guaranteed. Um, because it being a reptile means that it's going to fatigue faster. So I basically just have to use my mammalian advantage to survive. And uh, they are fast, but they can be outrun. You cannot outrun a grizzly bear. So uh, the answer would be, of course, neither, or both if I'm holding a 4570. Because if we got a 4570, then we can do both of them at the same time. Yeah. Uh, you want to fight neither of them in the water because the alligator is designed to fight in the water and it will just drown you. That's how it kills its prey. It actually latches onto it and drowns it. And I don't care how strong of a swimmer you are, that thing pulls you under the water and sits on top of you, you're screwed. So, yeah. You don't want to fight either of them in the water because they outweigh you easily. But specifically the alligator because it's got its tactics down pretty well. So the answer is neither, unless holding a high caliber weapon. Somebody says, I'm glad to hear that the guys are good. I miss the chemistry all, all of y'all have. Yes. Me too. I really wish that they would come around more. But again, they don't live here. And I understand that. Yeah, the thing about that, somebody says you don't have to outrun a grizzly, you just have to outrun your buddy. And that's not technically true. If you read the if you read the documented cases of grizzly bear attacks, usually the grizzly bear identifies its target and pursues its target. So if you're the person that it has decided that it needs to maul, you are it, and it doesn't matter how slow your friends are. It will usually just forget about them and go after you. Um, they're pretty focused when it comes to their aggression. Generally speaking, though, they are fairly. It usually comes around territorial issues around cubs and physical land territory. So generally speaking, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. And usually, when you see a grizzly bear, having seen several in the wild, they usually come face to face with you from a distance, and they will look at you. And then when you move to get behind cover or something like that, by the time you've lost eye contact with them, they're gone, which can be very disconcerting. But that has happened to me, and I was a little freaked out for a little while until we got back to the main trail. But generally speaking, they don't really want to mess with you. The other thing that I found out is they don't run downhill very well. And I did not know that until I went on a hiking trip out in Yellowstone. So, somebody asked, where has Wombat been? Wombat has a big boy job, covered that already, and unfortunately, it requires him to spend a lot of time out of town. And usually, when he comes back into town, he wants to spend this time with his wife, because when I mean out of town, he disappears for a couple days and then he comes back in. So they moved him to a new position, and he basically has to travel to that facility several hours, and that's a shitty gig. It just is what it is. Somebody says, I'm super short-waisted. I'm not sure what short-waisted means, but don't find appendix carry comfortable at all. What would be your second choice? I'm really struggling with both efficiency and concealment. Okay, so first choice is appendix carry, and second choice is appendix carry. Off, yeah. What I would say is, if you mean short-waisted as in the width, then what I did for a while when I was carrying a larger handgun, so if I'm carrying a subcompact handgun, then I carry strong side, because my hips are relatively narrow compared to my shoulders. So what that does is it drapes the shirt weird, and because of that, a gun all the way over here will poke out more. So if I'm carrying a subcompact handgun or a compact handgun, then I will carry strong side. If I don't have a subcompact handgun and I'm carrying a like a mid-size handgun, then I will carry weak side appendix, but it'll be in a right-handed holster. And what that causes, the draw looks a little bit more like a cross draw, but you basically just have to lean farther back to clear your shirt type thing to get all your stuff out of the way. And it gives you extra space to conceal the gun. So if I'm during long slide season, I totally carry a weak side appendix. Now, the reason I say that over the 4 o'clock position is because there's still a good chance that that holster may move around. And if you land on that thing, I know that this has been beaten to death, but I have a family member who's been personally affected by this. If you land on that gun, it is going to hurt you, and you can break some stuff. And that precise thing happened. Somebody landed on their 226 and broke some spines off their back. And periodically, while they're mostly functional, periodically, their legs will just stop working. And of course, they're beholden to the VA to fix that. Good luck with that. So I'm really hesitant to tell anybody to carry at the 4 or 5 o'clock position, because there is potential for that to work itself around, especially depending on how big the gun is. Personally speaking, I don't carry anything but appendix anymore because my shoulders have had enough damage done to them that I can't really even do that motion very efficiently anymore. It grinds, pops, and clicks when I go like this. I can get to it, but it doesn't feel great, and it doesn't feel fluid. So I have to do like 5 warm-up sets to even begin bench pressing. That's how problematic my shoulders are. Yeah, man. Somebody says, I've never felt more outgunned until I had a 9mm when I was in mountain lion country. 10mm, bro. That extra millimeter makes a whole lot of difference. Oh, okay. So he just clarified what it means to be short-waisted. Short-waisted means floating ribs are pretty low and usually hitting the top of the slide. So without, I guess I'll just ask it. Are you like really short? Because like I have a really long torso is the thing. So I'm 5'11", but if I sit next to my girlfriend who is like 5'8", something like that, 5'7", um, I'm taller than she is when I sit next to her, but I look marginally taller than she is while standing. I tower over her when sitting because my torso is super long and my legs, my femurs are really short. So I've never had this problem, but as far as appendix is concerned, I know that it can be relatively uncomfortable. What you need to do is what I would tell people to do is you're probably using a holster that's wrong. You should go to a soft loop holster that allows you to sink that holster farther down into your pants. And that will abbreviate the amount of exposed slide above the pant line. Now, you may have to carry a larger gun to get a good purchase on the grip. It's the trade-offs. But that slide, the holster will actually end up canting with your body shape, usually, and it will sink the slide farther down. So that would be. He says, "No, I'm 5'10". Anybody under 6 foot is short. I'm 5'11". I can say that. So yeah, short waisted, long legs though. Goofy runner's build. Okay, I gotcha. I understand. Yeah, that you have the exact opposite problem that I have, which is you have long legs, short waist. So I can't really speak to that because I have the exact opposite problem. But what I would say still stands is that you probably need a different holster that puts the gun farther down your pants. And I'm not saying that you should go for the urban carry holster because those things have been pretty much debunked at this point in time. So, sorry for being long-winded on that question. So when I went hiking, I carried a 10 millimeter. Going back to the thing about the wildlife thing. 10 millimeter, I think with the proper loadings, you can get some really hot loadings. I think that there's a lot of potential there. So, in fact, I would argue that there's no reason that they should make 45 ACP 1911s anymore because now we have 10 millimeter and it's a much more efficient cartridge. So I know that is going to irritate some people, but I really do like 10 millimeter. The only problem with 10 millimeter ammunition is it's expensive, and in many cases hard to find. Not as bad as some other stuff, but you know, it is what it is. So anyway, we have been on for about an hour, and I need to wrap it up here pretty soon because today is my girlfriend's birthday. So I have to get cleaned up and all that sort of stuff before she gets off work in a few hours. So if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and post them now. We'll go ahead and start wrapping up, and then I'll catch you guys on a future stream after that. I'll give it a few more minutes to populate some questions. But the idea that I have for these streams is to do a variety of different content with live streaming here on the B channel because I just think there's an opportunity to reach out to different segments of the population that may not get the information that we would normally be putting out on the internet because their search patterns are different. I see a lot of that in my own life because I don't actually watch a whole lot of gun content after hours. In fact, I have a hard rule about watching anybody's content on a project that I'm currently working on. So like the only time that I will watch somebody else's content is when I'm like 95% done with my project. I'll go to a couple, of the heavy hitters and see what they found in their reviews to make sure that I didn't miss something. And I know that many people hold the same ideology in that I'm one of those people that has a relatively iterative personality. And what I mean by that is I will see something and then do the same thing 6 months later and think that it was my original idea. But I totally copied it off of something subconsciously. So I don't watch other people's content organically that work in the same space that I do because I don't want to copy their work subconsciously, basically. Um, so in my entertainment side of my life, usually I gravitate towards other things, and that was the big thing that I gravitate towards is a lot of sciencey stuff because I'm actually a chemist by education, and that has since gone away. Obviously, now I'm a professional gun reviewer type person, but sciencey stuff, and then also I really like the escape of medieval fantasy. So yesterday we did a live stream playing Total War Warhammer 3. It's a fantastic strategy game that's based in a fictitious medieval fantasy type world with magic and orcs and all kinds of stuff like that. A cool game. And that kind of content, books, audiobooks, video games, things like that, movies, TV shows. That's the kind of stuff that I like in my spare time because I do so much gun related stuff for a profession now that I just kind of need to put it down every once in a while. And that's what I use to rest my brain. So I know that there's a lot of people in those communities that absolutely push themselves away from the firearms side of the table because they live in a kind of their own fantasy world, if you will. But then there's an even greater segment of that population that respects the fact that we do live in a modern age, and they're interested in weapons in general, and they can be brought onto our scene a little bit more readily. So that's my idea anyway, to change it up between different topics. And to do that, I need to be able to grow this current stream, or excuse me, this current channel, because I don't want to pollute the current channel with a whole bunch of random types of content that may or may not work for people. So if you feel so inclined, I would really appreciate it if you went ahead and subscribe to the B channel here, because I need to get that number up over a certain amount to be able to access all the tools, because I've only put a few videos here on the B channel over the years, and I want to start using it more regularly. So anyway, to the chat. I see a couple here. Oh, somebody wished my girlfriend a happy birthday. Well, thank you very much. And what am I getting her is the other question. So I'm not going to say that live on air because she might actually be watching right now. But I also gave her a early present in the form of I spent a day working on her backyard. She was going to move 2 loads of topsoil with a shovel. And I'm like, nay, nay, nay. I went over to the barn, loaded up the skid steer, and drove it over to her place, which was about 40 minutes away, and redid her entire backyard because it gets really wet back there, and it was to the point where the mosquitoes were starting to come out of her puddles. So I'm like, that's unacceptable. And what I mean by a gift was not only the time that I spent doing it and the prep work and all that sort of stuff, but I graded it so it would run into her neighbor's yard, which she doesn't really like very much. And she said, "Wow, that was the sweetest thing that he's ever done for me." She really hates that guy. So anyway, I had a good time in today's stream, guys. If you have topics for future streams, then this thing will post as a VOD, hopefully, if YouTube doesn't take it down like last night's stream. If you have ideas for streams, then post them in the comments of the VOD, and I will review that after the fact. VOD stands for Video on Demand. And I will review those and maybe use them in future stream ideas. I don't know how regular this will be, but it will be regular. It's something that I want to do at least on a weekly basis, but I may do it a few times a week. So thank you guys for watching. It's excellent to have you here as always, and hopefully we'll see you on a future video, both on this channel and over at the VSO Gun channel. Peace out.